So now when we start with the actual course, first thing I think I need to clarify something because the English title and the German title are different. So the English title, and that's the official one, is Project Management in the Age of Digitalization, whereas the German title is still Management von Entwicklungsprojekten. The reason for that is that because I have taken over this from Dr. Becker, and he had the focus on the management of the development projects. That was also a German class, and we discussed before where do we want to put the focus, and I thought it would make sense to look more at what are sort of overall developments in project management and also what happens because we have digitalization, agile methods, stuff like that. So give it a little bit a different focus. So in terms of what will be the content of the exam, we will make sure that it's very transparent to you so you know what to expect. It will not be so different. There will be maybe 2 or 3 different or additional topics, but in principle it will more or less stay the same. So what we're going through today, the purpose of today is give you an idea of sort of what will be the overall scope of the course, what will be sort of the areas where we will put a lot of emphasis on, and also sort of motivate you further to say, okay, yeah, I need to understand what project management is about, because project management really is like everybody's talking about it, everybody is a project manager, but not necessarily everyone knows sort of what to do. So what we do today is we go through why do we need it, how do we do it in principle, why do we care about digitalization, and very, very important, why is communication? And I'm not talking about Skype, I'm not talking about wireless, I'm not talking about, let's say, about electronics or technology. I'm talking about people communicating with each other. Yeah? Why that is so important. And having gone through this from an introductory level, because all of this we will handle in detail in further lessons, yeah, we will summarize the course objectives. And then, that is a pre-warning for you now, this will be teamwork. Yeah? So the last 2 points is something where I expect that we will work together to figure out, okay, what is it that, for example, characterizes a project, and why do we think that project execution is really problem solving? So we are looking at a problem solving process, which will be then the basis for our further sessions. So, why do we need project management? First of all, project management is not at all new. Yeah, you can, I mean, whatever you see, every building we had, yeah, every kind of artifact that people created, where more than one person was working on it, everyone, yeah, that needed some kind of project management. Whether they called it like that or not is completely irrelevant, but the actual activities that needed to be done were what today falls into the category of project management. So forget about critical path, forget about MS Project, forget about Agile. These things exist for 4,000 or 5,000 years in principle. Of course, when the guys were building the pyramids, they had some different methods. Yeah, especially they had some different methods to motivate the workers. Yeah, so if you didn't perform, you would probably be thrown to the lions or something like that. But nevertheless, there was a way to motivate the people. So between these two, so this is again a picture of the Life Factory. There are 4,000 years, but the principal problem is the same: to make sure everything we need, which is the people, the equipment, material, and all the things they need to do, that they are put together to reach the intended goal, like building a pyramid, building a factory, yeah, even planning a holiday can be a project. So from an enterprise perspective, so from the perspective of corporations, of companies, projects are a very important part today of an enterprise's development strategy. And not only development of product, but also development of the organization. Because usually in an enterprise, what you have a department that takes care of human resources, you have a department that takes care of finance, you have a department that takes care of purchasing stuff, Yeah, like, let's say if you are in whatever, I saw the ad at the whiteboard, which was from Volkswagen. You have a lot of departments, and they all have specific tasks. But if you want to reach something, if you want to develop something, like if you want to develop software for cheating with your diesel engines, yeah, then probably you need to put many people together. And that's sort of in contrast to the normal organization that an enterprise has. That's why you build up a project. And the project then puts together experts from various areas. They can focus on a specific problem to solve. Either create the diesel cheating software or fix the diesel cheating software. But nevertheless, it's a project. So everything, you could really say everything that is in addition to the daily work of a corporation, like building cars, selling cars, maintaining cars. Create a new model for a car, for example, or for us, create a new drug, create a new medical device, is done in projects. That consequently means that if you're good at managing projects, then you're good at developing your corporation. That means you get a competitive advantage. That's why project management is really an important skill. And for you to understand also why it makes sense to invest into this in terms of your time here and maybe some time outside. If you look at, sorry, this is German, but this was interviews being done with HR people in various German corporations who were asked what is important today in terms of skills and what is important in 10 years. And in both questions, yeah, project management comes up very high on the list. So 3/4 of the guys who were asked were said, yeah, project management skills are necessary. They are necessary today, and they are necessary in 10 years' time. And I'm very sure they will also be necessary in 20 or 30 years' time, because at the end of the day, what it means is you are able to have tools and apply tools to manage the complexity of the ever-changing and ever-developing environment and the world. So, all of this, summarize that. What do we mean by project management? We have a DIN, which is the sort of the German norm for defining, well, in this case, for defining the wording and the processes around project management. It says, Project Management ist die Gesamtheit von Führungsaufgaben, Organisation, Techniken, Mitteln für die Abwicklung eines Projekts. Important thing is this one, Führungsaufgaben. So it's leading something, yeah? And the Project Management Institute definition, I'll come to the Project Management Institute later, from a publication called PMBOK, which is the Project Management Body of Knowledge, yeah, which you will also see later. Says it's the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques in order to meet or exceed stakeholder needs, blah, blah. So that means you're applying knowledge, skills, tools, techniques to reach your goal. Yeah? So what it is project management is first and foremost a task to lead someone and lead something. And the green one, I added that, it is common sense. We will be talking quite a lot about planning and cost estimation and work packages and blah, 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 blah. But if you are applying common sense, that means you understand that before you do something, you think about how you do it. And before you start to do something, you need to understand what is the task. If this is how you work, you have 70% of project management already embedded into yourself. Everything else is just, yeah, well, yada, yada. So, leadership, I said that, it's a leadership task. And there is a good reason why I take this. Project management is not this. The reason I'm saying that is when we hire new people from university and they are working, or let's say their task is to do project management. Very often their impression is, now I'm the project manager, you have to do my bidding. No, it's not like that. The project manager is the guy or the girl who is actually helping and being a servant to the team, so the team itself, the entire project team, that team can reach its goal. Yeah. It's not, the team is not working for the project manager. The entire team is working to reach the project's goal, and the project manager makes sure that sort of the technical guys in the team, for example, or the guys doing the documentation, or the guys doing the user training or whatever, that they can do their work efficiently. That they do not have to take care, for example, to talk to the guy giving the money for the project. We had examples where people were, I think the last one we had was a plant in Peru, where we had 3 or 4 developers on the plant, so they're doing the control system, and there was no project leader on site. So what happened was that the customer was asking all the stupid questions about when are you ready, how much does it cost, can we change this, blah, blah, blah. All this, he was asking this directly to the developers, which of course meant that the developers couldn't do development because they were answering questions and preparing presentations. So this is, for example, is something which actually the project manager has to do. He is sort of the servant for all the sort of technical parts in the team to make sure they can do the work. And of course, he is also the one who is communicating the customer requirements. Yeah? And he is also the one who then, he has to check the progress. But checking the progress is not for him to feel good, but to make sure the project is on track. So how do we do it? Yeah, now the idea was here to say, okay, now we understand in principle what project management in principle is about. Are we there? Are we all there? Or any questions, any comments? As I said, all the time. Yeah, because project management is interaction. It's not like consuming stuff. So anyway, how do we do it? At least we know how not to do it. Yeah. This is a picture which shows the ever ongoing construction or not construction or whatever you want to call it that is happening at the Berlin-Brandenburg airport, which is really an absolute disaster in terms of project management. And there are, I mean, the good thing about this is it gives input to, I don't know, probably 2 dozens of dossiers, PhD theses, blah, 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 on how not to do project management. I'll give you some references later on. Yeah, so there are some really interesting analysis on this, and we will have this as an example in few areas. So at least we know, yeah, something went wrong here. So maybe we need to look at this a little bit more detailed. So another source could be, okay, I went to Amazon and was just looking for project management. What does it say? Okay, I don't know if you can read that, but it says 30,000 results for project management. Does it help? No, it doesn't help. Yeah. One of these is Prince2. We'll come to this or several similar stuff later. This is the British standard for project management in controlled environments, version 2. Yeah, it's a project management standard. We'll come to standards later. But what that also means is just looking for a book on project management will not help you. Yeah, because there are many books. They are more or less probably all talking, telling you the same. And finally, project management is like, there is really like an inflationary use of that word, of that description. Yeah. So I don't know, who of you does know Dilbert? Anybody knows Dilbert? Okay, so if you don't know him and you start your professional career, I highly recommend to read it because it gives you more insight on how organizations work than any onboarding or whatever the corporations call it today you have in the actual workplace. So what this says is really to say, oh yeah, now I'm a project manager, and yeah, project manager is not something that is a protected title. It's nothing. Yeah. So anybody can call himself or herself a project manager. So really, also that doesn't help us. So the intuitive understanding, Maybe, we don't know. So anybody really can call himself or herself a project manager. There is no internationally accepted minimum, there are nationally accepted minimum to do so. So if you pass, for example, if you attend this course, if you pass the exam, which I assume, yeah, doesn't mean you're a project manager. You can say, okay, you learned about project management, but whether you attend this course or another course, they don't have to be related. What the guys doing over in business studies with project management and what we do here, you should hope that it's somehow related. You should hope that in principle we are saying the same things, but there's no guarantee for doing that. Yeah? So this is one of the reasons why certification, personal certification, has become a topic in this area. So certification means you have some accepted association, in this case the Project Management Institute or the International Project Management Association and its German branch, the German Project Management Association. They have, let's say, a basic set of what they call competences, which you should have as a project manager. And you can try, or let's say, you can pass an exam where these competences are checked, and then you have a certification by that particular, in this case, particular association. This is a little bit the same as we have today now with Scrum. Yeah? You probably, all of you, or some of you know the Scrum Alliance. So if you want to become a Scrum Master, there is a definite, let's say, a way how to do that, what you need to know, what you need to pass, what you need to prove. Yeah? We have similar stuff with the Lean Alliance, so which is concerned about effective methods for production and production management. But these are, as I said, these are personal certifications. In addition to this, all of the large companies that I was working for, they all have their own curriculum regarding project management. So if you're entering a new job and you're supposed to work as a project manager or as at least a sub-project manager, usually they will have a curriculum where they explain to you the tools and methods that they are using. Mostly like, okay, we use whatever, MS Project or Primavera or whatever, blah, 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 for time, for schedule management. And this is how we are calculating our cost, this is how we are reporting, blah, blah, blah. Yeah? All of these are tools. Yeah? So from an employer perspective, you could say, okay, a certification shows that you have a certain interest in this area, in this case into project management. So if you want to apply for a job and you have a certification, wherever it comes from, yeah, at least it shows, it gives you some advantage. Whether it's actually related or in terms of the wording, in terms of the tools that are used to what you need in your new job, that's a different story, because that maybe people may work according to the GPMs, or the German competences and German wording, and your corporation may be American-based and may use the PMI stuff. So you can't know about that. But in principle, at least you then know the core issue, the core tasks that you have in project management, so you can rely on that. So these are sort of the big players in this certification and project management standardization area. Yeah? So the EPMR, which is located in Switzerland, the German branch of that, and the PMI. And I really wanted to point this out. The Project Management Body of Knowledge is a great book. It's really a great book. It's huge. I think the latest version is like 600 pages. But really, if you were at one point in time decide, yeah, I want to go down that road and I want to be more, let's say, from my professional career point of view, project management is important to me, it makes sense to own that, just as a reference. I don't care so much about the certification, but just to understand or give you some insight on what else you need to think about. And again, I'm coming back to Dilbert, because certification does not and will not ever replace actual experience. So I rather hire someone who has gone through 2 or 3 or 4 projects, and even one that failed, yeah, and understands on what is really going on, than hire someone who has a certification and no practical experience. That should also be clear. So, and that's, if you take a few seconds to read this, that's exactly the point. We sometimes are in a situation where we hire consultants to help us in our work, especially in projects. And if you, sometimes the people who are, let's say, presented to us, they are certified project managers. And their project management, blah, 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 blah. Yeah? Everything like how you should structure, how you should do this, how you should do that, yeah, does not help us at all, because they may not be able to understand the actual problem. Yeah? So that's an important thing to remember. Yes, certification does make sense. Yes, project management, theoretical know-how does make sense. But project management is really something that you need to practice, because it has, as I said, a lot to do with interaction, a lot to do with guessing what is happening, because you can't measure everything in a project. It's not a technical development. It's a lot of interaction with people. So another great source for that is NASA has published the references in the presentation. NASA has published 100 rules or 100 plus rules in the meantime for project management. And one of them is to say, you can be as dislikable as you want. Yeah, you can be an, sorry for the expression, an asshole, but you can still be a good project manager. But if you don't know where to go, if you can't decide, if you're like, oh, I don't know, and maybe, and tomorrow, let's talk about it, blah, 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 you're not a good project manager. Yeah? You need to understand that for project management, it's important that you make decisions. You make decisions with your team. We saw that because you are not the boss, you are the leader. You facilitate decisions, and that you are responsible. Yeah? The project manager is ultimately responsible for the success of the project. Okay, so are we clear on, let's say, the overall scope of what project management is about? Yes, no, perhaps tomorrow, I don't know. Okay. So now, third part that we were talking about, or let's say that is part of the topic, really, is digitalization. So maybe we should first think about what digitalization is, because we have these two words. One is digitization, the other is digitalization. So digitization is really just analog to digital conversion, in what way, however. Yeah? Whether you scan a document, you take a measurement value and put it into a controller, that's digitization. Digitalization is different, because it really is the process and the development process to use digital technology and the possibilities that you have, because you digitize the information and have it thereby automatically processable, to further develop, evolve your business processes. For example, if you say, okay, now you have, let's assume you have an insurance company. The insurance company today processes forms that are sent in by snail mail, which are just paper-based, yeah, where people just make their crosses using a ball pen, blah, blah, blah. This, at the moment, at least for some corporations, still means that you have people reading it, people assessing it, people making the decision whether or not to grant money because of a request of their customers. If you digitalize that, first thing is you digitize the form. Second thing is you use that information and define rules and criteria according to which you process that information, and you put that into practice. So people are sending in their requests, the requests are in a digital form, and then you apply whatever. rule-based system, machine learning to detect certain anomalies, all kinds of stuff, in order to come at the end to a proposal for a decision. And the proposal for a decision, I'm explicitly saying that as a proposal because normally humans will still take the final decision. But this entire process then is digitalized. It's not digitized, digitalized. Yeah? It's important to understand. So this is what we mean by digitalization. And everyone is talking about Industry 4.0, digitalization, digital agenda, blah, 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 as if it was something new. Depending on where you come from, what is your professional background, what you can really say is, okay, about time you realize something is happening. Because this is a quote from tender documents that we received in 2005 to build a power plant. Power plant is about, let's say, investment volume 500 to 800 million US dollars, so quite a big project normally. Yeah. And the customer, in this case, this was a customer in Korea, was asking us, or explicitly asking for a project information management system, which really means that they were looking for something where they had the technical data, the documentation, the cost information, the progress information, yeah. Also, the information about what did you buy already, what was already shipped to the site where the plant would be erected, what is still in procurement, so where do we still have to make contracts or purchases, blah, blah, all in one system. Yeah, and that was 13 years ago, so it's not new. And what does that mean for us? It actually means that if I have all this, it's easy to check project progress. It's also easy to report on project progress because I have a single, let's say, information basis based on which I can say, yeah, normally I should have, let's say, I should have ordered that motor 2 weeks ago. I didn't because my supplier either can't deliver or I was too late or I made a mistake or whatever. Then you see immediately, yeah, there is an issue. I have an issue with that particular task. And that is the major advantage and the major impact we have by digitalization is that we are going to have tools, if we set up our projects properly, by which we can measure progress without, and that's important, without the actual technical guys having to report that explicitly. You want to have the project progress measurement as part of your daily work. You don't want to have explicit, let's say, reporting. So imagine you have a development project. Yeah, 3 of you are working on a piece of software. One is doing the HMI, one is doing the backend, someone is doing the database design, whatever. Now, you have a project manager for this. And this guy has to report every 2 days, yeah, for example, to the person taking care of you, to the person supervising the project, blah, blah. So if you don't have this integrated approach, what happens is your project manager will come to you every 2 days and ask, how far are you? And you will tell him. First of all, you spend time telling him. Second, you have communication, which means normally you have a loss of information. You tell him something, he understands something else, and what he gives to the guy who is reporting to is something entirely different. Yeah? So the idea really is to say, yeah, if we have this integrated environment, like you have whatever you're working with, yeah, whether it's Eclipse or Java, and you have Jira or something for tracking your development tasks, and you're reporting directly into your development environment, the project manager can just check what is the status according to what you have really produced, not what you tell him. And this is the general principle for all kinds of projects. Yeah. As soon as you can measure what the individual work packages, we come to what work packages are later, what has been done in them, yeah, you are very, very far ahead in terms of reporting. And you're very far ahead also in terms of security. Security meaning how sure are you that what you get as information is really correct? When you report status, is it really the status that we have, or is it only what I understood? Or is it a political statement by a developer who doesn't want to be bothered? Could be, yeah, happens to all of us. So in this context, the improvement potential that we have by digitalization is, of course, transparency. Yeah, that's what we were talking about. Risk management, because it's earlier, we are able to see in an earlier stage if something doesn't work as expected. Adaptation, meaning, yeah, in case we see something changes, yeah, we can very easily also assign new tasks to people and reprioritize them. Knowledge management, meaning, of course, we want to have a single sort of source of truth for everything that happens in the project. Because the worst thing that can happen is that you have a team or a sub-team working in a project that goes into the wrong direction. And they're all working, they're all spending money, they're all spending time, and blah, 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 blah. And then, because you don't look at it, 2 weeks later, you look at what did they do, and they did something completely wrong. Yeah? That, by the way, is, let's say, the worst person you can have in a team, is someone who doesn't understand what to do, but is very eager to do things. Yeah? It's like someone who is just running full speed ahead into the wrong direction. It's better if they don't do anything. But going to the wrong direction is normally worst case. But of course, not all of this comes for free, because what we see for some time now, and it's increasing because of the transparency that we get, is there is a larger requirement on flexibility. So because we have all this transparency, people, especially customers, expect us to be more flexible. Like, yeah, but you have these nice tools and you see immediately all the dependencies. So why can't we just change this a little bit, and then you will just manage the impact? Yeah, but nevertheless, change is always something where we don't know at the beginning how much effort it will cause. That's why we're using agile methods, but agile methods don't take away the sort of the complexity of change. They just allow us to handle it better. The response time, like how quick are we to respond on reporting requirements and change requirements, is nice, of course, from a customer point of view, but it puts a lot of load and strain potentially on the project members. Yeah, because being totally transparent and being, let's say, in a situation where at any time the project leader and even the customer can see what the progress is something which may not be good in all cases. The worst thing is if then the project manager just starts bothering you because he says, oh, today you should be at 75.3% progress. You are at 75.2%. And what he's doing is he's calling you all the time. Whereas your 0.1% progress, which then, of course, will mean you don't make any progress at all because you're talking to him. So that's also something which you need to take into consideration. And self-organization is also a big requirement then on the team members. Because if we do everything in an integrated environment where tasks are defined by task list, where we reduce what we want, the amount of meetings, for example, where we're discussing things, fair enough, but that means the individual person needs to be able to self-organize himself or herself. Yeah? So there are advantages and disadvantages, or improvement potentials and challenges to this. So I don't know if anyone of you has heard the word BIM or the abbreviation BIM already. Anyone? Look at this. It's Building Information Management. It's something where nowadays the large construction companies, they're following the same approach. They say, okay, formerly it was only 3D model of the building. Now it's BIM 4D is 3D model plus time, where you say, okay, I have like, let's just take the airport, yeah? Yeah, okay. So you have the runways, you have the building, you have the famous fire fighting system, blah, blah. So you add to the model where you say these are the artifacts that I have, the information of when do you work on it, when do you plan to finish it, yeah, and maybe even some intermediate gates. 5D then is you add cost to it, where you say, okay, and this for this part, I expect to have this type of overall budget, but also I say, okay, in the year 2017, I need to spend 100 million, and the year 2018, 50 million, and in the year 2019, when I'm completing it, I have the last payment to the supplier of 20 million, something like that. And this is a concept which shows exactly what this entire digitalization can do. It's really combining the work in terms of content with the information you need for controlling your project. And when you are in the situation that you are responsible for managing at least a full project, or let's say the entire project or a sub-project, in a larger environment where you have a lot of interaction, ask yourself, is it possible that I can receive somehow or extract somehow the real status of the tasks that people are working on from their engineering tools? Is it possible? Can I measure, for example, in terms of modules completed? Try to find an objective measure of progress. Try to get away from interpretations. Because as a project manager, you rely on, you need to have reliable information. And people tend not to give reliable information, not because they don't want to give it to you, just because everyone is different and everyone has a different view on things. Yeah, you know this. I guess you know that. Yeah, when you ask someone, okay, when are you going to be ready? Or let's say, how far are you with your project? Then typical answer is almost ready. Almost is such a huge scope of interpretation. For some people, almost ready it is as soon as they have a solution in their head and just need to start coding. For some people, almost ready is, yeah, I just need to do the last compiler run, but I don't care about testing because everything I do works perfect anyway. Yeah? So it's completely different. So this is the point where we need to talk a little bit about communication, because this is a PMI analysis saying when we have an issue in projects, when we are not successful, in many cases, it's due to communication issues. So of all the projects, not of all those that are unsuccessful, but of all the projects, 20% fail because communication is not working well. And again, it's not wireless, it's not Skype, it's the people talking and interacting with each other. Yeah? And why is that so? Because in the project, people are the most critical success factor. Because the project itself is done by people. All the tasks are worked on by people. People choose the technology that they use. People choose how to employ it. People choose how to combine things. Also, people choose priorities. The project manager is also a person who sort of chooses priorities. And if he doesn't communicate them well, and if the team doesn't understand them, and if the team has no chance to react on that and say, yeah, but if you do it like this and this, if this is the sequence that you actually want to do, it's not going to work. Yeah? Because the project manager, you need to remember that, is not, as such, a technical expert. He relies on the technical expertise of the team. If the team doesn't understand what to do, how can they give feedback to him? And if they give feedback, how can the project manager understand it if they are talking only technical blah, 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 blah. So it's really a communication issue. And also from an organizational point of view, people choose how to work in a project team. And because of that, yeah, they need to be able to communicate effectively. They need to understand each other. And if that doesn't work, the project is going to fail, 100%. I don't know who of you knows this picture, because it's quite well known. Yeah, it's the, let's say, it shows the different perspectives. Even if you assume that all of these roles, like the customer, the project manager, the engineer, the programmer, the sales guy, yeah, the documentation responsible, blah, 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 they all did their very best. It is still possible that this is the result. It's still possible that this is the result. Yeah. And of course, the worst thing is, let's say the customer, he has some expectations. And the project success from a customer perspective is that the project, the deliverables that come with the project, they meet his or her expectations. He doesn't care about whether we internally are successful from a commercial basis. That's not interesting for him. For him, it's interesting. He wants to achieve something, and did we achieve the goal? Yeah. And from a point of view of being sustainable, this combined with that is, of course, the worst case, because the customer is not stupid. He will understand that what he got is not what he wanted, and that the bill which he got certainly exceeds what he was expecting. So, not really a good thing. And of course, the customer also makes mistakes in explaining, and that's why, I'm sure you heard that, yeah, we have what is called requirements engineering. Requirements engineering is an essential part in preparation of the project. Can be even finding and identifying requirements can be even a project in itself, to make sure we understand what the customer wants. And depending on what kind of project you're doing and what kind of artifacts you're producing, you can have requirements management embedded into the project, like an agile approach where you're giving points and making burn down lists and blah, 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 blah. You can do all that. Or if you're buying something, if you're creating something physical, like you build a house, then there is a limit to how agile you can be. It's not entirely not agile, but at least you need to understand, okay, what is the size? What is the basement? Something you need to fix. So from a project management and a project manager skill point of view, it's absolutely necessary to be able to effectively communicate with everyone who is a participant or what we call a stakeholder, so somebody who wants something from the project, in the project. Yeah? And there are many things to consider. There are cultural differences. I told you about this BLearn 2 project and about what Katharina was saying about the boy doing the project management. There was another incident, and that was when we had the first review meeting, or let's say the preparation of the first review meeting, I should say. I was sitting together with our colleagues from Spain and from Portugal. And I had prepared an agenda, and we went through I started to go through the agenda and said, okay, now we have to deliver this and this and this. Now let's go through the work packages to check on the progress. First thing they told me was I shouldn't be so German. Yep. So they said, no, come on, let's calm down. Let's talk about this and this and this, and we will come to the progress reporting and progress assessment later. Okay, yeah. We reached the goal, finally. It took longer than I thought. But anyway, doesn't matter because it's a team effort. What I'm trying to say is you need to understand who you're working with. And people have different backgrounds. People have different expectations. And they also have their own, let's say, agenda. Not meaning in any case negative, just meaning that they have, of course, their own point of view. Yeah. Although this one, yeah. Should make a point on that. If you have any chance, the recommendation I give to you, try to go for mixed teams. Mixed teams are so much better in everything related to project organization, working with each other, communication, identifying problems, everything. Yeah? Just because there are just different ways of viewing things, and also because it's sort of controlling everybody's behavior much better if you have a mixed team. So, C-level. C-level is an American expression for everything CEO, CIO, CTO, CFO, blah, blah. Also, Chief Executive Officers, Chief Information Officer, Chief Digital Officer, Chief Financial Officer, blah, blah. So the upper management level. Yeah. As a project manager, depending on how high profile your project is, you may need to talk to them. And that means, and that's very important, yeah, you can't talk to them as if you're talking to a tech guy. No way. They will shut off. They will shut off after 10 seconds. They don't want to understand this. They're not stupid, but they don't want to understand it. We have a rule that says, okay, for this level, what you can have on the slide is 3 boxes, 5 arrows. That's all, not more. And it really is the case, and you need to understand why, because they get like 20 project presentations a day. So you can't expect them to understand or even bother with somebody giving them a formula which goes about 2 lines, yeah, and explaining them the nitty-gritty details of, let's say, the whatever, the error rate being raised from or being dropped from 0.3 to 0.2%. They don't care. So, and again, when you talk to your developers or engineers, you need to adopt a different language. At least you need to understand it. Sales guys are very specific, yeah, especially when it comes to pricing and when it comes to progress. You need to be extremely careful giving any kind of cost indication to a salesperson, because as soon as he hears it, he takes it and gives it to the customer. You always have to be very, very careful, especially also with progress. If you tell him, okay, if everything works well and we have this and this and this clarified by tomorrow, then we will be ready in 2 weeks' time. This guy will go out and will tell the customer, in 2 weeks you get the product. Yeah, he will sort of skip, because of the way he's working, will skip sort of the conditions and will just take the result. Customer domain language is also very important. And the first project I did for ABB, that was this engineering system for the power plant components. I started that in a situation where the project team and the customer didn't talk to each other anymore. Because the customer thought, these are all IT nerds. They have no idea of what we're talking about. And the IT nerds thought, okay, they are all stupid. So first thing I did at that time was I took a book on on power plant engineering and invested 2 days to read what they were doing. And then we continuously started to build up, let's say, our communication. And of course, you need to have this, like all the different words on project management, blah, blah, whatever, work packages, cost control, la, 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 la. So, because of that, because of communication is so important, we will be a little bit more interactive from now on. Yeah, so that means I expect you to work with me or work on your own. Sometimes, not all the time, yeah, don't worry, but not all the time, but sometimes. So, summary. We're not at the end, yeah, but just an intermediate summary. What do we want to achieve by doing this course? First of all, motivate you that to learn about project management, to understand that, well, it is interesting, it is multidisciplinary, and it is important. So, also to understand what is the theoretical basis. Being aware that theory alone will not get you anywhere, but at least you need to know and understand something. Understand what you have to do in case you are a project manager. And based on that, understand, okay, where am I good at? And where I may have to improve. Yeah? Because everyone has his own strengths and weaknesses. And this project management thing, if you want to do it well, it requires a bunch of skills. And usually, no one is excellent at all of them. So you need to figure out, okay, where am I good and what may be the things that I need to improve. Also, it's also very important to understand that project management and project management done professionally has a value. Why do I say that? When I had my own company, I started with 2 people and then we grew. And when we had the largest project where we had 10 people working for 2 years, I appointed a single project manager to that. And the developers were, sorry to say that, pissed off. Because they thought, oh, we can do this on our own, no problem. We have done our own projects all the time. Why do we need this guy who is just doing project management? And it took maybe 6 or 9 months until they actually could appreciate what this guy was doing for them. Because suddenly they were not bothered by the customer anymore. Suddenly they had someone who was sort of acting like a roof on top of the developer's building, was saying, okay, I take out all the nitty-gritty details of talking to the customer, of cost and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I do that for you. And if you understand that, and if you understand why certain things are necessary, why it's necessary to keep the customer informed and happy, for example, yeah, then even if you're not the project manager, the idea is then, of course, if you are working as a tech expert in the project, you will be more valuable because you can not only do your technical stuff, you understand why does the project manager need stuff, why does the customer need certain information, yeah, and so it's easier for you to say, yeah, of course, I understand it, so I do it, and not being angry about requests all the time. Of course, this is important, and we will take care of that the exam will be, that you are able to successfully complete the exam. Yeah. But as I said, this is part of it. For me, the most important thing is that for you, you understand that this entire project management thingy has a lot of value in it. So, how do we start? Looking at the time, I think we will not be able to do all of that, but let's start with the first one. We have been talking about project management, we have been talking about projects, but we have not yet defined, let's say, a real idea of what a project is. So, let me ask a question. This one, to build this, to open the box and build this, is that a project? Anybody of a different opinion? Okay. So let me just say it's not a project. And why is that? Because we were talking about complexity. Yeah. When you open this, you get instructions. You just follow the instructions. I do this and this and this and this and this, and then you reach the goal. That's, by definition, not a project. A project has a level of uncertainty in it. Yeah. So the project, also what you were saying, the project requires, or let's say by definition, a project requires interaction and cooperation of multiple people. 1, 2, 3, whatever. Yeah. Interaction with or cooperation with. So all of you are working on a project right now, which is completing your studies. You're not alone. You have a time limit. You have a resource limit. You have people you interact with, like the teachers, your colleagues, whatever. Yeah. You probably have a limit on budget. At least most people have. Yeah. Some might not have, but most people have. So that's kind of a project. In this case here, what would be a project is if you say, well, what I want to do is I want to develop such a kit. I want to develop a kit, and the constraints that I have is I need to have only parts that exist already in the Lego environment, yeah, and they are catalog, whatever they have. It should be, whatever the subject might be, it should be Star Wars, should be a Millennium Falcon, something, yeah, and it should not cost more than 20 euros. To do this, you need a lot of stuff. You need the marketing guys who will actually check whether or not that's feasible from a marketing perspective, whether we have customers for that. You need the engineering guys who, so someone who is actually doing the construction. You need someone who is creating then the manual. You have someone who need to create the packaging, all that. Yeah? So that then is a project. Okay. So, when we look at this, so what does characterize a project? So usually you say we have a single definable purpose. We have an artifact that we want to create, a result we want to create. Yeah? And we want to create that in a certain constraint. So we have a certain schedule, we have cost, we have the performance, meaning what we need to deliver. You will hear me refer to what is called the magic triangle. TKS is Termin, Kosten, Sachziele. You will very often hear that in project management. Yeah, and that triangle is really like this for the project manager to work somewhere So we have a schedule, we have cost, and we have performance. And those of you who have worked in an agile environment already, may have seen this turned over a little bit, where we say we don't care so much about cost and schedule, we have performance on top. Yeah. But whatever you do and whatever your approach to project management and project execution is, these are the three things that you need to juggle with, somehow. And of course, then you have the team and everything else, but this is what you will be measured against. Am I ready in time? Did I keep my budget? And does the thing do what it's supposed to do? That's really what it is. So another point is it's really a temporary action. Like if you're the normal activities in an enterprise, like, okay, I'm taking care of human resources and make sure that everybody every month gets a salary. That's not a project. That's just an ongoing, regular activity. Yeah? So the projects are restricted in time. You start it, you do it, you complete it, and then the project organization disappears. And with the next project, you create a new project organization. Could be the same people, maybe in different roles, but at least it's a new organization. Also, in projects, we have a uniqueness of purpose, meaning we have a very, very clearly defined goal. We want to achieve that. We can't do a project saying save the world is difficult. Yeah. Maintenance like what? Now, maintenance can be part of a project, depends on how you set that up. So if you say you create, let's say you have an application out of the door, and you say, okay, now I see a bug, I need to fix that. That's not a project. But if you take that and say, okay, because of the bug that I see a requirement to make a complete change or overhaul to the project, to the application. And then I start, let's say, this activity for which you need time and money and you need someone to control it, then you have a project. The single bug fix itself is not a project. Okay? So, uniqueness of purpose means we have a clearly defined aim. And usually we also say we do something we didn't do before. If you're repeating stuff all over again, maybe you did it first as a project, but then, for example, if you say, I need to, let's say, I need to configure a Linux server. Okay. And I'm not changing the hardware. I'm not changing the version of the kernel. So first thing, or first time you might say, because of this and this and this requirements that I have, I do this as a project because I don't really know how to do that. I need to figure out certain things. I may have to talk to the network guys. May have to talk to the user administration, blah, blah, blah. So that may be a project with the result that you know how to set things up. You have a documentation how to set things up. Maybe you have images that you can deploy, stuff like that. Then if you do the next 10 servers or virtual machines, whatever, to install in the very same way, those are not projects anymore. This is just repetition of what you did. Because you can, let's say, usually you can say very well, okay, I need this amount of time, and this is what it's going to cost, and I'm just deploying the stuff over and over again. Again, your example, if then suddenly your hardware supplier decided to change something you are not aware of, and he didn't document, and suddenly the kernel doesn't work anymore, then you may have to create a project for the adaptation. But the idea in this case really is to say, I do it once, it's part of the project. Project deliverables are software and documentation, and then the next deployments are just regular activities, which can be done by an operational team or whatever. So, this was about how familiar we are. And then we have multiple participants. That's also a characteristic of a project. There is some debate about whether single-person actions can be projects. I think they are usually not, as long as at least you need to have some dependency on other people. They may not actually work on the project, but you have dependencies that go outside of your own control. That's sort of a minimum requirement. And of course, you say it's a certain level of importance. That's more from a, let's say, enterprise point of view, but also from a personal point of view. Yeah? If you look at completing your studies, maybe versus going over the Rhine River to have wine tasting, maybe there are some different priorities involved. Of course, yours may vary. Yeah? For some people, wine tasting may be more important than completing the studies. That depends on you. But normally you say a project is something which I want to complete with a certain level of urgency also. And that's also, we will come to that in a later session, that's also something that will be reflected at the beginning of the project. Very simply put, if you can't be sure that you have the time to do things, to do the stuff in the project, if you can't be sure that as a project manager you get the people you need, don't start it. Just don't start it. Don't do it, because it will fail. Yeah? If people at the beginning tell you, I don't have time for this, I may be able to save 10 or 20% of my time to support you, it will not work. Don't do it. Yeah? So this is the level of importance. So finally, again, we have, of course, formal definitions. So in German, the major thing is it's unique, so Einmaligkeit der Bedingung. And we have the Bedingungen contain Zielvorgabe, so what do we want to do? We have time, budget, and maybe resource constraints. We have a clearly defined purpose, and we have an organization that's specific for the project. So that characterizes a project. And from the PMI definition, again from the project management body of knowledge, is that, yeah, it's temporary. We do something that is temporary. We do something to create something that is unique, at least so far. Yeah? And unique could be a product, could be a service, and could also be a change in the organization. Yeah? To change an organization, let's say from a very strict hierarchical organization to something that is more lean, more leveled out, is also a project. It's done by people. It's constrained, again, same as here. Yeah, we have time and budget, material, people constraints. And of course, that is the difference to here. They put an emphasis on, yeah, it should be planned. Yeah. And also from discussion with developers, very often we have the argument saying, yeah, but you don't need to plan because it's going to change anyway. So why do you want to plan? The point of planning is not to stick to the plan under all conditions. That's not the point. The point of planning is like, imagine you want to go someplace again over the Rhine River for wine tasting. Yeah? At least you need to have an idea how to get there. You need to understand, okay, there are certain waypoints. In case you don't reach the waypoint by the time you intended, okay, not really a problem. But in case you don't know the next waypoint, that's a problem. So how do you want to measure progress if you don't know where you go? So, and that's what plans are for. Plans are not for sticking to them, let's say, ultimately under every circumstance. That's not the point. The point is they give you a framework, they give you sort of some guidelines of what you should be doing. And if you figure out, I can't do that right now, you may have to adapt the plan. That's fine. And it's also not necessary to invest huge amounts of time into planning. It's necessary to understand the critical conditions in the project, the critical areas that you need to take care of. And that, of course, is experience. Yeah. Everybody can, after two hours, can work as MS project and put some graphs together, no problem. But to make a plan that is useful for the project and for the project team, that is meaningful, that helps you to reach your goal, that is experience. So, finally, for today, You have 5 minutes to think of a project that you did and try to answer these questions. And then whoever wants can just make a short presentation or just say, okay, this is what we did, and this is my assessment of it. And just one more comment. You learn, or we all learn the most from failures. We should be aware of that. A project which worked perfectly usually is nice, but you don't learn anything from it. Yeah. So there is this story about the airline who was hiring pilots. And the one pilot that was hired was one who had done emergency landing before because he forgot to de-ice, to take care that that the plane's wings were de-iced. And he was hired. And why was he hired? Because the guy hiring him said, this guy will never again forget to de-ice the wings. And it's similar. Yeah. If you don't do mistakes, you're not going to learn. So don't be afraid of describing a project which went horribly wrong. Yeah, I think we will come back to this also next week. And it would be nice if, let's say, you could create like groups of 2 or 3 or 4 people. Just each of the groups make a short 5-minute presentation of one case. Yeah, just one case. Yeah. And again, it's about content. It's not about making fancy slides. It's just about sharing the experience. Yeah. Yeah, I will talk to Thorsten where to put them. Yeah, because at the moment I don't yet know where to put them, so you can access them. But I will arrange that. Yeah. And you don't need to prepare any slide or anything. It's just making sure you can just talk about a project where you said, okay, this and this and this happened. Yeah. It's really more like sharing the experience, so we can. I will take from that. I will make some notes and say, yeah, this and this and this are issues that appear everywhere that may be specific for the project. Yeah, there will be. So the examples that we have will be also software development projects. Yeah, but not only. We will have. Well, you already saw. We have this plant engineering. We also have machine building in there. Yeah, we also have organizational stuff. So we have some parts that are specific for IT, but it's the overall project management, let's say, focus. And honestly, I personally think, independent on where you are, you have domain knowledge, which is IT, but we're not talking about domain knowledge here. Yeah? We're talking about the general principles and tools and risks and how do you do things generally if you're responsible for a project. Because also, when I look at our organization, yeah, it's really multiple levels. We have what is called the project management office. We have a general way how we do projects, how we do risk management in projects. And then we have some few specific things either for the capital projects, like building a new plant on a new site, and for the IT projects. But they are really related then to the technology and stuff that you're deploying in the project, not to the tools you're using to do project management. The idea is that at the end of this lecture, you should be able to, let's say, maybe adapt a little bit to the individual expressions. You should be able to pass the basic certification. That would be the idea. So let's say, first of all, I assume it will be written, but I can't be 100% sure, because that's something I need to discuss with Thorsten, also Professor Kröger. Yeah? We had the idea that it will be written, yeah, but it depends a little bit on how sort of the amount of people is developing. Maybe it will be better to do an oral examination. Content will be, of course, the same. And about the date, I can just say, yeah, it will be sometime between February and April, but more I can't say, sorry. I also have to arrange my own dates somehow. I don't know yet what are the possibilities, so when we can do that. Yeah, I will try to make it as, let's say, as compatible with your schedule as possible. But since I'm not in Germany all the time, we have to make some arrangements. So, and yeah, maybe I should write this down. I didn't write it anywhere, I think, and especially everything that's related to the administrative part of this course, I'm still a novice, because since I did the last course at this university, it's 20 years ago, some things have changed. So you can do it like this, or you can draw cards or whatever. I don't care. So anyone has something to present right now? Yeah, just a short story about what you were doing in a project. So not so much changed in 20 years, I understand this. Okay. All right, good. So, and for next time then, just so for everyone else to relate to things, then give a very short information about what was the content, yeah, how much time you needed, or let's say how much time was foreseen, if there was something like a time limit, how big the team was, and again, more like lessons learned, what you want to do again, what you don't want to do again. So if I understand you correctly, next time you would, let's say, in your team, you can always appoint someone who says, okay, we agree that this guy or this girl will take the position of the quote project manager. Don't make it too formal, but just have the one person who says, okay, in case we can't agree, this is what we do. And as long as you do it in, let's say, with that intention that you say you're serving the team. If you go forward and say, now I'm the boss and you have to do what I tell you, that's not going to work. But if everyone understands that you need some level of organization, yeah, just to make sure you're not doing things twice, yeah, then normally I'd say it shouldn't be a problem if someone goes forward and says, yeah, I'm going to do that. That's sort of the political aspect in that. From a, let's say, practical point of view, absolutely. Yeah. If you have, let's say, with two it may work. As soon as you have three people, you need someone who has an overview and says, this is what we're going to do next. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So we're not exactly where I wanted to be, but that's fine. No problem with that. Any feedback you have, send it to me, say it here, yeah, because I also need to learn how to do this. Yeah, I'm trying to bring across what I think is important. And again, I also, the purpose is that at the end of the lesson, at the end of the course, you have everything you need to, let's say, to prepare yourself also for certification, because that will help you much more than if you have just passed the course. Yeah. Problem is certification costs money, up to, depending on what you want to do, $3,000 or $4,000. But nevertheless, at least then you have everything in your head what you would need. Whether you have it in your pocket is a different thing. Okay, so enough for today. Thank you very much.